things like video are huge ways that we can make people take notice. It's been proven on LinkedIn, for example. If you're scrolling and you see a video, you're much likely to stop and, you know, even if you're watching the first 5 seconds and then continuing to move on, you're much likely to stop and, you know, get in that attention. We're a complex business, you know, energy, utilities, sustainability, it's so complex, but there's so much to talk about. If you stuck all that on a PDF or a brochure or on a web page, there's only so much you can consume. You know, we're all very visual people.
Hi and welcome to Q&A, our series where we chat to thoroughly interesting people from the business community. And in this episode, we're talking to Allison Hill, Head of Marketing at Trident Utilities. And it's a brilliant chat looking at all the platforms that Allison and her team are using, the strategies that go into marketing a company of 70, 80 people, and also taking a company that on the surface could be a technology or a utilities company and really showing that it is powered by brilliant people. But it's that video strategy that was a particular interest for me. They are a client of ours, but really interesting to see how Trident and Allison and the team use video, not just from ourselves, but internal video, mobile video, really to show off the brilliant culture and energy that there is in Trident. Hope you enjoy it. Allison, great to see you today, and not on a Teams, because obviously we've worked together a lot and usually it's just that, so thanks for coming into the studio. I alluded to in my intro that I'm conscious I don't want this to be a big wonderful advert for Bigtank, but we've been working together with your mission, I suppose, at Trident, and as head of marketing, video has been a big sort of focal point on that. So just tell us first of all about your role in Trident and what your responsibilities are and what you get up to.
So in terms of my responsibilities, I think you can pretty much say a little bit of everything. Yeah. So as a head of marketing, I literally head up all of our marketing efforts. So everything from what we're doing from an acquisition point of view, what we're doing from a brand and from a storytelling point of view, right down to our retention efforts as well. So what we're doing to actually enable our customers to stay with us, to keep them returning, to make sure that they're referring as well. So a little bit of everything sort of encompasses our role. But yeah, a big part of my role is about brand and storytelling, which is a huge part for us.
Yeah, and we were chatting off camera, but I'd love to hear your take on the importance of marketing, but to existing clients, because I think sometimes it's seen as the funnel. Okay, we do these campaigns, we get inquiries, we get a client, they are now over there with sales or whoever, and we go again.
Yeah.
But I know a big part of your work is making sure, as you say, that people, once you've got them, that they stay there. Is that very different messaging that you might use to getting new clients?
To a certain extent, yes. To a certain extent, no. I think that the things that stay the same is still that credibility and trust. You know, the difference is that once they are with an account manager, they're also supporting that messaging. But I think there's no one better to tell your story than someone who's already experiencing it. So I think from a client point of view, we see that a lot with some of our case studies or client stories, that we're getting them to talk about their experience. And again, I approach that slightly different to, I suppose, your standard case study, which kind of goes, you know, Trident are great, and, you know, John is great. I'm sure he is, and I'm sure they are, of course.
Yeah.
But we approach it in a very very different way, which is, you know, what is their journey? What is the journey that they're on? How are we supporting them on that journey? And not just thinking of it as a, let's stick a case study on our website and job done. Yeah. You know, I very much look at it as a, how can this support our PR efforts? How can this give us insight into an industry that, yes, we are dealing with, but we are, you know, we're not in the hospitality industry. How does that affect hospitality clients or future hospitality clients? And, you know, almost kind of getting them to feed into some of the stuff that you do from an acquisition point of view, especially around messaging. I think if you can hear that from them directly, I think it makes it even more powerful.
Yeah, and how important is the S word, as we call it, you know, story, which does get bandied around, and it's, you know, facts tell, stories sell, that old adage, but it sounds like it's integral to the work that you're doing.
Yeah, so one of the things that I always sort of make a key point about, so I've come from an industry that was not utilities, was not energy, and the biggest way for me personally to learn is by having conversations and actually, you know, going and having a conversation with somebody and going, okay, what does that actually mean? You know, what's the impact from a customer point of view? What's the impact on this? And actually being able to have that conversation. So I think if you can then turn that insight into something that people can follow, naturally it has a start, a middle, an end. I think people are much more receptive to that as a message, as opposed to us going, Trident are fantastic, come work with us.
Yeah, which you do see, you know, which I suppose it's not an awful thing, but do you think we're getting a lot more cynical as well,
Yes.
aren't we? I think that the trade-off with the proliferation, explosion of social media is it has less impact.
Yeah, and I also think from an AI and from a digital point of view, there is this world now where authenticity is really, really important. And, you know, algorithms aren't necessarily favouring AI content. You've got, you know, my son the other day was saying about there was some music playing in my neighbour's garden, and he came to me and he went, "Mum, he's playing AI music." And I was going, what do you mean he's playing AI music? And it's almost kind of seen as a really negative thing, especially with that younger generation. So I think there is a real importance to kind of go, actually, this is authentic. It's speaking to a customer or from a client and actually getting their own point of view. It's human, it's real. And I think more and more people are more receptive to that as a story or as a case study or whatever that might be. They're wanting that real authentic feeling. And I think you only get that from real people. Yeah.
And do you think that is agnostic to the subject or the product you're selling, or does it make it easier to have a powerful story when you've got something that's potentially quite dry like utilities? Is it easier to say, hey, no, they're people powered, rather than a potentially more obvious people powered business?
I think it's applicable to any sector. So I've worked in, you know, hair and beauty. I've worked in accountancy and payroll. Accountancy and payroll is not very sexy. You know, going into energy and utilities, there's a lot that's happening, especially around the sustainability area. But I think it has a really strong place in all of them. I think regardless of sector, I think the more complex what you're selling or what you're offering to customers, I think it helps a lot more. But I think being able to bring a different perspective and bring in something that people can consume on a much easier way, I think is potentially something that could benefit any business, regardless of sector.
Yeah, and just coming on then to now the harnessing the power of video, our bold title there. And why I think I was excited to talk to you about this is, as I said again, it's not just a plug because I think you guys are using it in exactly the right way, because we're not doing everything for you. There's that whole, there's some content that we create. You've got your own video room. You're doing webcam based content. There's mobile phone content. How important do you see it that there is that spread and the effectiveness of different types of video within the business?
Yeah, I think you only have to look at from a customer point of view. I think we always have to bring this back to our customers. You know, where are our customers? What channels are they looking at? How do they consume information? There's a stat out there, I can't quote it, but talks around, you know, us having the, you know, less brain capacity or less memory than a goldfish. So being able to consume information in different ways, in different formats, I think is really, really important. I think giving people the choice, you know, if you've got something that's a short 60-second video that might be on TikTok, for example, and then you've got something that's then mirrored in a much more in-depth 45-minute video, you know, an actual sit-down conversation, you're giving people the choice. You're giving people the opportunity to kind of consume what they want and how they want it. So I think there's a real appetite for a variety of different, you know, video types across a variety of different channels. It all has to come back to your customer and how are they consuming that information.
Yeah, so I always lead with customer first, and then
absolutely,
rather than we want to make something and then a potluck who it resonates with.
Absolutely. I think you only have to look at webinars. I think when, you know, back in, you know, dare I say the C word, COVID, back when, you know, 2020 hit, webinars were everywhere. You know, huge webinars.
We were sick to death of them. I'm hoping that's what you were about to say. But
we were, and I think now, yes, webinars still have a place, but I think a lot more people will sign up to webinars because they know they're going to get the video afterwards and they can consume it at a time and a place that is suitable for them. So I think you only have to look at that and almost kind of understand that, you know, times are moving and they're moving very, very quickly, and how consumers and how customers, you know, want to have that information is changing rapidly. So I think being able to offer a choice, I think, is really, really important.
Yeah, and a big thing, and we've seen this, it's because some of the brands we've worked with, we've been for, you know, 15 years or more, and they've had sort of waves as different teams and things come in. But how do you maintain your brand? If you've got some content that you're doing on a phone when someone's out on a walk, you've got content that your team might be doing in here with us in the studio, or a really nice glossy cinematic. One thing that's got to be constant is that brand and what you stand for. So how do you guys maintain that when you have got all these different elements in your own studio now, and to not lose that identity?
I think you have to be a little bit flexible. I think you have to be a little bit flexible in the first instance. But when you are thinking about a brand, don't have it so that your brand guidelines are almost kind of so challenging to try and maintain. You know, if your brand guidelines are so restrictive that everyone's sitting there and questioning, oh, can I do this? Can I do that? Can I do that? It actually prevents people from doing what we want them to do and encouraging that. So I think almost kind of having a standard set of broad guidelines that then can be tweaked. And again, looking at different channels to go, okay, that kind of polished output wouldn't work for that particular channel or wouldn't work for that particular purpose. There's still a level of branding. So whether that is, you know, branded shirts, whether that is branded backgrounds, or even just, you know, music, you know, that there's that sort of consistent theme throughout. I think you have to be a little bit flexible to that, but then having people within your business that buy into them, buy into that sort of broad brand guidelines, and also having people in your business that aren't afraid to question it. You know, having people that will go up to, you know, senior members of the team and go, didn't quite like that because of this reason. Didn't feel right. Yeah, they have to have, you know, we have to have guardians within the business when it comes to brand. You have to have that regardless, but not making your brand guidelines so restrictive that people feel like they can't do what they want to do with it. That kind of defeats the object. And
I think from again, we've worked with you guys for, I don't know, maybe a couple of years now, and feel that it does feel like a really good, not just being sycophantic, but a great firm where people can speak up and be involved. Equally, I'm sure in your, you know, your career, you may have worked at some places where you were in the colour and in department, or that kind of, you know, where they're not really sure why marketing's there, but we're making a few quid, so it's a good. How do you, if anyone's sort of watching this who are nodding, going, that's what I feel like, do you go and find a firm that don't think like that, or is it about showing real value in what you do to get people on your side, if that is the case?
I think every marketeer will be able to resonate with that question. I think every marketer has had that challenge where you're trying to have a conversation with a finance exec, for example, who has got absolutely no interest in brand. You're talking to the wrong person if you're talking to the finance person about brand. You need to talk to the finance person around future sales and how this is bringing value to them future sales. So for me, it's brand has its place, marketing has its place in every single business. It is about that value piece and what you're doing to drive that value. I think where marketing has sort of failed in the past is, you know, a lot of vanity metrics, and we do have a hell of a lot of vanity metrics that we do look at, and operationally I look at them on a daily basis. I look at them all the time. Are those
sort of things like impressions or the big numbers that likes and things like that, or are you looking at deeper than that?
Exactly that. I mean, you know, if you're talking about impressions, you're talking about likes, and I've had this many people click, and, you know, we've had it from a PR point of view, especially. PR is very, very challenging to be able to sort of trace back to, well, okay, we've had an engagement, and there's this much circulation and this much reach on this magazine, and we've had an engagement. What does that, well, can I trace that back to our CRM? that's not the purpose of PR necessarily. You know, PR is more about that credibility piece. So I think being able to articulate that to people, I think is really, really important, making sure that your exec team and your leadership team really understand what each of these different channels are for, first of all, but then also being able to speak to them in a language that they understand.
Yeah.
You know, as I said, if you're speaking to finance and you're talking to, you know, if they're just interested in, okay, well, what are you delivering? And what are you bringing in this month, and what does that look like in 6 months' time? And are we going to get that EBITDA figure that we talk about? You need to talk the same language.
Right.
So absolutely, every marketing person in the world has felt that pressure, has definitely been called, oh, you're just the company, you know, you're just the team that make all these presentations look nice. But it's much, much more than that. It's much more integral to how a business operates, and how do we get from A to B? You know, what's that journey that we're bringing people on, and being able to articulate that in a way that different people in that leadership team understand is key, I think.
So you've got to know what has to happen from doing this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's got to be, because otherwise I suppose you can just burn through money and people go, well, did it work? It looks nice.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of...
Exactly.
It always drives me mad. So it's from... I think, again, we were chatting off camera, but when we don't get too much feedback where people say, yeah, it looked great and we think it's helped, which always breaks my heart, you know, but I get it because for branding exercises. But when people say, yes, we did this campaign, we did this, views went through the roof, and then the phone rang.
Yes.
You know, I'm old enough to remember the telephone, and then we have sales off it. For me, I know that doesn't always happen, but if we're not showing that, then surely, yes, our days should be numbered, because I don't know, it's a balance.
I think it's a real balance. But I think this is where I'm saying about marketing is not just, you know, one part. You know, we're not just the acquisition department that stick a load of money on Google ads and, you know, look at conversion rates. Yes, we do all that, of course we do. But what we're also doing as well is we're feeding insight into our business development team. We're feeding stuff across the wider business. We're getting stories from customers and asking questions of customers that are in particular industries that says, what are you finding challenging at the minute? If we were going to do something different, what would help you? And I think that can then form, whether that's a new proposition, whether that's something that actually you do slightly differently to, you know, whether that's a process, for example. If it's something that, you know, is a bit of a pain for them, how can you take that challenge away, and how can you, you know, support that better? So I think it has to be a balance. It absolutely does. But I think, you know, marketing is much, much bigger than just one part. It has to feed the entire business. And that was something, especially when I first joined Trident, something that I really got on board with and really looked at every single team and said, okay, well, if marketing could make your life easier as a starting point, please don't say the word PDF or PowerPoint, but I'm open to ideas. What would make your customers' lives easier? Never mind what you want, will that help the customer? And almost kind of not being afraid to go, but why? You know, and being able to question these things where there is a feeling, there might be a feeling, being able to turn around and go, well, do you know what? Are we doing this for a lead generation exercise? If we are, then we have to see leads off the back of it. And we can't be afraid as marketing people to be able to go, we didn't see any value in that, so therefore our recommendation is not to repeat. You know, but then in the same breath, being able to look at something and go, okay, we've not generated any leads from that, but that wasn't something that we ever thought we were going to generate leads from. This is very much a credibility and a brand piece. Getting that agreement in your leadership team is key. If they agree with that, when you're then presenting that back, it's then a decision as a leadership team that you can make to then go, okay, is that something that we want to continue? We understand the impact it's had from a brand point of view. We know it's not going to impact on the lead front necessarily, you know, or directly. Are we okay with that? You know, and I think it's really important to have that balance.
And when you're setting sort of timescales to see whether something's been a success, especially because you're using so many different types of video, do you have sort of different timescales for, say, you know, some sort of social homegrown content to the studio-based things, or is it all just part of the mix and let's review in 3 months, 6 months and see?
So we do a bit of both. So we'll look at, especially social content, because you're churning that out a lot faster. People are consuming that a hell of a lot faster. So if we looked at that, on a 6 monthly basis, you're not being able to react and change what you want to do. You're not being able to see what's working, what's not, So I think social, for us especially, we monitor very, very closely. We'll look at that on a monthly basis and kind of go, is what we set out to do this month achieved? What did we learn? Okay, how do we now need to alter the next month? So we do look at that very, very closely. Other things that might be more studio sessions, where it's more thought leadership based, more insight led, it's much bigger to consume, a 45-minute, half an hour, 60-minute, whatever that might be, video. So that might be a case of, okay, well, how are we going to look at that? Do we want to look at that after 6 months? Do we want to look at that after 3 months, after 12 months? And I think looking at each channel and going, what's the purpose of this?
Yeah.
What is it there to achieve? Is it achieving that? And are you given enough time to do that? I think, you have to look at it a little bit different for each thing that you do.
Yeah, and of course video is just one part of so you've got a Trident to kind of 70, 80 people or along those kind of numbers. How do you manage it? How do you keep your, because I know you've got a bit of a team with you as well, looking at marketing, so that you're not just putting all your budget or your eggs in one basket and then suddenly switching over to here.
Yeah, so
I'm going to watch this back as well, by the way, because I'm getting some free marketing advice here. So
always here to help. So the way I always structure it in any business, it depends on where they're at. So when I joined Trident 12 months ago, they were, what every marketing person wants to hear in their interview, we're in the middle of a rebrand, just what every marketer wants to hear. So it was really, really important for us in that first 12 months to really embed that brand, get our brand out there as something that's new. Yes, Trident's been around for 25 years, but this brand is different.
Yeah.
This is an opportunity to kind of go, okay, guys, we are here. We've been here for 25 years, but we are here. So I think really looking at, okay, well, therefore there needs to be more of a focus on brand. I think looking at where the business is going, if you are a high growth business, you need to be looking at, obviously, acquisition. You need to be looking at what does that churn rate look like, in which case how much percentage of my time or our budget needs to be spent on acquisition versus brand versus retention. So certainly from our point of view, we're very much 50% focused on acquisition. So our budget should reflect that. So time, resource, budget should reflect, okay, 50% should be focused on acquisition. We look at more towards 30 to 40%, probably more towards the 40% at the minute in terms of brand. And because we've got such a strong retention rate with our account management team at the minute, retention is still important, but it needs less of an influence from a marketing point of view. So we're almost kind of using our retention budget and our retention resource through our account management team to sort of lean on them a little bit to kind of go, okay, well, you go and find me the answers to these questions. You go and facilitate the introductions to your clients, and then we'll sort of take over and bring our PR company in at that point. So yeah, it needs to be balanced, but it needs to reflect where the company wants to go, what their goals are for that financial year, and also where they are in terms of a brand. A scale up might be slightly different versus an established company of 25 years.
Yeah. And a question that we may just clip and say, look, this is what Allison says about video. How important has video been to this journey that you're on? If you say not at all, we're going to edit it with AI. We would never do that. Huge.
Video for us is, because we are very much we're a complex business, energy, utility, sustainability, it's so complex, but there's so much to talk about. If you stuck all that on a PDF or a brochure or on a web page, there's only so much you can consume. We're all very, very visual people. So I think it's really important to be able to give people a little bit of variety. Things like video are huge ways that we can make people take notice. If you're scrolling, it's been proven on LinkedIn, for example, if you're scrolling, you see a video, you're much, much likely to stop. And, even if you're watching the first 5 seconds and then continuing to move on, you're much, much likely to stop and, getting that attention. So for us, it's huge. It's become part and parcel of everything that we do, certainly from acquisition right through to retention. It's a huge part of every single touch point. So being able to go, okay, from an acquisition point of view, we're building that demand, we're building that awareness, top of the funnel stuff. When they're coming to our website, they're having an opportunity to get insight, to have a think, to read stuff and listen to stuff that we've put together that's very, very insightful. Again, short, long, whatever that might be. They then get into proposal stage, and we've got videos on our proposals. Yeah. They're then getting to the point of, okay, they're not quite ready to say yes. Okay, well, our business development team are constantly feeding them with whether that's insight in terms of videos, whether that's insight in terms of content that's been fed from our customers, right the way through to once they become a customer, they're getting videos which talks about this is the onboarding process. They're then getting quarterly updates about the energy market. So, it's literally become, and because we have got our obviously in-house room as well, it's become an integral part to how we do business, but also how we communicate. So even having the ability to do internal updates, so our MD, Michael, will, get on the, go in the room, book the room out. 20 minutes later, he comes back out and says, right, I've done a company update. Yeah. Can we send that out? And that's our quarterly update as to business performance. So again, people are consuming that when they're ready to consume it. We're not bringing everyone into and we do still do elements of this as well, but it's a much more easier way to listen and understand what's going on and what's happened, rather than everyone coming to one place and sitting down and
which there's a time and a place for that, isn't there? But,
absolutely, but it just gives people an opportunity to sort of listen at a time and place to suit them. So for us, huge. You'll be glad to know. Good,
great stuff. You can leave the purchase order on the desk. No, because again, from our side, again, we're not naive enough to think that if you're doing video, and that's sometimes the challenge I have with how video is marketed is create video and they will come, and it's absolutely not the case. I get kicked under the table by some of my business partners, but saying to people, video can be a great way to burn through budget and achieve nothing if it's not done as you've alluded to there, looking at what do we want to achieve, who's the audience. But it bloody does work when you get it right. And again, that's why I think for you guys are really good for us, because we can say, go and look at what Trident are doing and see that it's not just everything that we're making for you, the whole spread, and that it's all helping drive this journey.
Absolutely. And I think it's been a real point of difference for when we're having conversations with our clients around, can we tell your story? And again, I don't just want to do a case study with you. I'd like to understand this. And, if we come to the end of our conversation and we've got a great story, we'd love to get our video production company involved, or we'd love to bring you here and we'd love you to come and have a chat with us on the sofa and, have a chat about what's going on. And would that be all right? And they're going, yeah, all right. Yeah. I'm all right with that. Again, you get some people that go, oh God, don't put me on video, but they're happy to do it because they understand the halo effect that will have on their business. So it's become a real point of difference. We've just had, just to sort of talk about a point of difference. Again, we've just been shortlisted for 3 awards at the Biebers. So part and parcel of when the Biebers judges were coming on tour and coming round to our offices was actually taking them into the room and actually explaining, this is how we do business. This is how we, again, everything that I've just talked to you about, in terms of building that demand, building that awareness, sharing that insight, goes into our proposals, goes to this, being able to sort of show that communication strategy by just bringing them into a room and going, this is what we've done, or being able to attach videos onto our awards entries. I think it's a really, really powerful way for anyone to really get a very quick understanding of your business. It's been really, really great for us.
Yeah. And kind of last question for anyone watching this who is thinking of starting a business, or they've just got a new role as a head of marketing, and they've got a budget and they're wanting to make some waves with it. I'll give you a minute on this one, maybe 2-3 things that they should perhaps do immediately. And you don't have to say come and give all your budget to us, although if that's what you think, but what 3 things if you're to get off onto a great start.
So I think number 1 for me would be, look at what is happening. Look at your competitors, be very, very clear in terms of what your competitors are doing. and then just do it better. You know, a lot of the time people think that from a marketing point of view, you have to be so innovative and you have to do something completely different. No, a lot of the time is just be aware of what is happening around you. Be aware of what do you like, you know, have some conversations with people that are potential customers and understand what would make your life easier. If I put this together, would that be all right? Would you respond to that? If the answer is yes, off you go. So that would be the first one, is you know, very much look around what is going on at the minute.
Yeah.
You know, if you have got competitors that are already doing that, what is it that you like? What is it that you don't like? Do it better. You know. Second for me is invest in some good support. You know, so whether that is give all your money to Bigtank, or whether that is bringing somebody in who, you know, is someone that is passionate about storytelling, who understands that this doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to be something. Understanding someone that can go, do you know what, I really respond to days in the life of, you know, John, can we get you on can I just come and film you, and can I get that done, you know? So bringing somebody in that is passionate about that and actually can see the vision, I think is really, really important, but as long as they can execute, I think is really, really important. Hence why we lean on you guys from an execution point of view as well as a strategic point of view. I'm going to say the third point, sort of 2 and 3 together, but invest in some decent equipment. I think it doesn't need to be huge cost. You know, we've filled a room, you know, with some very, very good equipment, but it doesn't need to be all singing, all dancing. You know, you make do with what you've got, you know, but invest in some key pieces. And again, lean on your support and people that are in the know to be able to go, what is the right thing for you to have? And I'm just going to add a final point on that, which is just do it. You know, just do it, learn as you go. You know, nobody is looking at videos going, oh, that's a lovely polished piece of work. I mean, they might be, but people are looking at videos go, oh, okay, that's interesting, that's different. And the more authentic and the more human it is, the more people are going to be responding. So I think absolutely polished content has got its place, but if you are somebody that's just starting out, it doesn't need to be all singing, all dancing. It can just literally be a founder on a screen. It can be, you know, them just talking at a camera very, very quickly for 60 seconds about what's going on or what they're seeing or, you know, what they're offering. But I think the more you think about it, the more I think people get put off. I think just go with it, do it, understand what the data's telling you, and then learn as you go. Amazing.
Always a joy chatting to you, Alison, but again, thank you for coming in, and wonderful to see the energy as well that you've got for the journey that you're on with Trident, so thank you.
Thank you very much.